Xuanzang's face suddenly turned as pale as paper. Xuanqi realized he had said something wrong, and seeing this, the people around dispersed. Only Xuanzang remained in the square. The wind swept up a few withered leaves, blowing them to his feet. A lone wild goose cried mournfully in the distance, and the setting sun in the west was as red as blood. Xuanzang murmured to himself, Who gave birth to me? Why was I born? He looked up and shouted his question to the sky, which remained silent, only allowing a tear to slide down his cheek. Xuanzang returned to his hut to find Xiaobai Long stealthily rummaging through his scrolls. Upon seeing him, Xiaobai Long quickly transformed into a carp in the water tank. Xuanzang stood in the room in a daze for a while before suddenly starting to pack his belongings. He walked to the water tank and said to Xiaobai Long, Let's go. I'll see you home. Determined to leave the temple, Xuanzang knew even Master Faming could not stop him. Faming sighed, You were born into loneliness. Henceforth, keep the Buddha in your heart for constant protection. Xuanzang pondered, Master, I've been thinking all things come from emptiness, but where do the loves and delusions of all beings originate? And all things eventually return to emptiness. What purpose does one's journey through the mortal world serve? Faming replied, Well, to be honest with you, if I could explain it clearly, I wouldn't need these years of arduous cultivation. Xuanzang bid farewell. Master, I must take my leave. I am embarking on a long journey. Faming advised, I understand your thoughts, take care. He then chanted a verse. The way of the Dharma cannot be spoken. Questions of the heart have no answers. Those who comprehend become the universe. Emptiness comes from within. Xuanzang bowed 3 times to Elder Faming, then stood up, holding the bowl containing the golden carp, and turned to leave. At that moment, the world was solemn. Endless leaves fell silently. The sounds of the wind, the rustle of grass and trees, the tide, and bird calls seemed to fill the heavens and earth, as if countless voices were speaking. Yet upon closer listen, there was nothing. A great journey thus began. By the river, Xuanzang held the bowl and said, Once, I came from here. The river was shrouded in white mist. The strong wind billowed his clothes, as if he was speaking to Xiaobai Long, or perhaps to himself. All things are sacred. Every blade of grass and tree matters. You have your own home, your own freedom. I can no longer keep you. Go. He released the golden carp into the river, which circled a few times but did not leave. Xuanzang whispered, Are you also sentimental? I appreciate it, go. Xiaobai Long felt on the verge of tears. These days, she had not spoken a word, only listened to the monk, watched him read, sweep, saw his furrowed brow when he pondered, and his peaceful face when he slept. She felt she could not leave these moments behind. There was no one like this in the Dragon Palace, no one like this across the vast Eastern Sea, and only one such person in the vast mortal world. Was she really going to part from him like this? Xuanzang urged, Meetings are but fate. When fate ends, do not cling. I am going to the ends of the earth you cannot follow, go. Xiaobai Long felt a surge of impulse, wanting to reveal her true form, tell the monk everything, and accompany him on his journey across the world. But she did not. She shook her head and swam towards the estuary. In the water, a glistening pearl slowly sank to the riverbed. Everything will fade. What remains is only memory. But is memory real or an illusion? It is intangible and invisible, yet it is so heavily engraved in the heart. Perhaps it was Xiaobai Long, or perhaps Zhu Beiji, or Io, or every person who thought this. As Xiaobai Long felt the silent, slow flow of water at the bottom of Eagle's Desolation Brook, she knew it was time passing. Yet her memories remained vivid, as if everything had just happened not long ago. The sea was red, the Dragon Palace dark. I discarded my body, my flesh, so the Emperor could gain nothing. Everything he wanted, I cast away, leaving only my pure soul, for the one I love. Strangely, The moment the sword passed across her neck, the thoughts were exceptionally clear and remembered. Xiao Bai Long watched her blood beautifully spread in the sea, saw her father's trembling, tear-streaked face. No sound, no pain, just that instant thought. So life is so short, and when you discover what you love, you should pursue it without hesitation. Because life can end at any moment. Fate is like the sea. When you can swim, you must dive into what you love. For you do not know when the wild currents will come and sweep away all hope and dreams. Xiao Bai Long, with the longevity pearl in her mouth, swam against the currents towards the distant light flickering on the sea surface. Swimming. Chapter 8. 10 years later in heaven. Sun Wukong flipped through the air and arrived at the heavenly court. The scenery here felt familiar, but Sun Wukong thought it must be a delusion. He didn't remember ever coming to the heavenly palace. Yet, as if by instinct, he found his way through the corridors, over the rainbow bridge, up the jade steps, and ended up somewhere. Where have I come to? There are peach trees here? The clouds swirled around him like a little girl, and Sun Wukong slowed down, feeling lost. He had never been lost on his journey west, for he never knew where he was going. Now he was lost, feeling that the scenes before him were familiar. I've never been here, but maybe I've dreamed of it. The purple-clad fairy standing at the edge of the cloud. Had he also dreamed of her? Little girl. Oh no, goddess. Could you tell me how to get to the Hall of Miraculous Mist? The woman was startled, turned to look at him, and suddenly stood speechless. She had a pair of beautiful eyes, with a very peculiar expression. You, she said after a long while. Goddess, you don't recognize me. I'm Sun Wukong. First time in heaven, not familiar with the way. You don't recognize. The woman lowered her head, murmuring, then suddenly looked up with hope, smiling and asking, Who am I? Seeing her smile, Sun Wukong was reminded of the feeling of lying on a tree, letting the warmth of spring breeze caress him as a child. Oddly, he hadn't recalled the past for a long time, always thinking his memories were filled with words, not feelings. Who you are, how would I know? Sun Wukong chuckled.